Hey, Bayek, it's me, Ian. And in today's video, I'm continuing my look at, well, classic albums, or albums that, well, are in my CD collection. I think, hey, these are classics, yes. And this is Hunky Dory by David Bowie from 1971. It is the fourth studio album by David Bowie. Wow, yes. This is his fourth studio album. And some background to this would be that he was now out of his contract with Mercury and had got himself a deal with RCA. And that means that the two albums, David Bowie from 1969 and The Man Who Sold the World, I think that's 1970. They came over with the copyright, so RCA could release those, which they did in their format. That's why there's interesting with the covers and those that they reissued, because if the original Space Oddity one, they used the cover on that David Bowie album, and I think they renamed it Space Oddity as well. This is just part of that background. And Bowie had been in a group called Arnold Corns. I love it, don't it? And guess what? In the Arnold Corns, there was Mick Ronson, there was Trevor Bolder, and there was Mick Woodmanson. Woodmansey, who was the drummer. So we had the core of Spiders from Mars. And this leads to the musicians that he chooses for this album. And you'll see that, and I want to get into it. So that's the background. Bowie now, he's got a new label. And also, they did a live gig for Radio 1 on the 3rd of June, 1971. And on this gig, they said they played some of the songs which would be part of the Hunky Dory album. And they said, yes, the new album's going to be called Hunky Dory. Now, I've got that gig. It's on the Bowie BBC archives, Bowie at the BBC CDs, which I think you can still get hold of. You should be able to. But that's just an interesting sideline anyhow. Okay, so this was recorded between the 8th of June and the 6th of August, 1971. And it was released on the 17th of December, 1971. And it was recorded at the Trident Studio, London. And as I say, the label was RCA. Now, Bowie co-produced this with a very talented engineer, Ken Scott. So Ken Scott is the co-producer. Ken Scott, if you mention his name and just have a look at what he engineered and had been involved in, he was involved with the Beatles. Yes, he'd worked with them. He'd worked with Jeff Beck. He'd worked with George Harrison, the solo work, Elton John, Harry Nilsson, Supertramp, The Tubes, Duran Duran. Yeah, that's just some of the people that he had worked with. And he associated himself with David Bowie for quite a few albums. Yeah, that's a fascinating fact that we have this very talented engineer who wants to become a producer, and he's eager very much to be a producer as well and learning on this album. and he contributes quite a lot. But Bowie, he's already showing his signs of how talented he is. He knows the kind of sounds he wants. Therefore, he's all involved in the production as well. Now, we've got David Bowie on vocals, guitar, alto, and tenor saxophone, and the piano on You Pretty Things and 8-line poem he does. Then we've got Mick Ronson, the brilliant, so talented, and so sad that we lost him so early. He does guitars, vocal, mellotron. But the other important thing, which some people overlook, and this is what happened, Mick Ronson did go into production. He's involved in a lot of the arrangements, even the orchestral arrangements that are put in the strings or anything, that they put in. He's very much involved in that. So his talent is already there, and he knew Bowie, as we say. They've known him. He plays on the Man Who Sold the World album as well. Very interesting, that association. And Ronson, so highly respected. Then we've got Trevor Bolder, again one of the former band members, playing bass, guitar, and trumpet. And then I say on drums we've got Mick Woodmansey, and then we've got, as a session musician who moves around a bit, Rick Wakeman, who plays the piano. And apparently Rick Wakeman, Bowie offered him position to go and join the Spiders from Mars. But he went on to do Yes, and he's got his own solo work. But he's got this very much famous connection, playing that piano part on Life on Mars, which is so wonderful, that stands out, plus other piano pieces on the album. Amazing. And Ken Scott, who we mentioned, the engineer, he plays the ARP synthesizer on the Andy Warhol track, which is a pretty far out track, Andy Warhol track. Now, the cover was designed by Terry Pastor, and if you notice, it's a black and white photograph that's been painted. That makes it kind of outstanding. Also, just if you're interested in sort of looks and about with Bowie, this photograph is very interesting. Because thinking of the time that we're in, the glam rock era approaching, and a lot about sexuality, it's very much a sort of deliberate, almost a bisexuality about that photograph, which is quite interesting. It's Bowie again, always experimenting, as he's the chameleon, the ultimate chameleon in terms of image as well, with his music and everything, music and image so linking together in art form. That's why it's a real art form. So as I said, the photography was by Brian Ward, and I say the design was Terry Pastor, and it is an absolutely outstanding design. It really is. So if we go through some of the ideas about the tracks, we can look through that. I'll list the tracks and we'll talk a bit more about the thing. So it starts with Changes, which is a very upbeat song, very much wonderful. It's different, but if you listen to the previous album, you think this is quite a different style for Bowie from what we've seen on the Man Who Sold the World album. But we'll go into a bit more about that. So then we've got Oh You Pretty Things. Now, Oh You Pretty Things was a song that Bowie had written for Peter Noone of Ehrman's Hermits. It was his first solo single, and it charted at number 12 in the charts in 1971. So Bowie was writing for other artists. That's how it happened. So that's on this song. Then we've got 8-line poem, which again very outstanding. And then we've got, of course, Life on Mars, which has become such an iconic song, isn't it? I mean, Life on Mars is so associated with Bowie and wider contexts of the imagery, everything about the Life on Mars, and that wonderful piano with Rick Wakeman playing it. So that's next, after 8-line poem. Then we've got Cooks, which is dedicated to the birth of his son, Duncan. Duncan, yes. Well, it's David Bowie's son, who became a great film director as well. I just say the word Moon, classic debut film that he directed. Anyhow, I've gone off there, haven't I? Then we've got Quicksand. Quicksand, wow, what a song that is. So much imagery going on, and so a lot of things. We'll go into some of these things as well. Then we've got Fill Your Heart, which is actually not a Bowie song. He didn't write. That's the only one on the album he didn't write. That was written by Biff Rose and Paul Williams. So he's done a cover. Then he's done Andy Warhol, which is a weirdo kind of song about Andy Warhol, American Icons. Then there's these three tracks, Andy Warhol. Then we've got Song for Bob Dylan, which again is explanatory. He was very much influenced when he was in America on this tour that he was on in America. He wrote that about Bob Dylan, who he totally admired, and who wouldn't? Bob Dylan, what a classic figure. And influence, the word influence of Bob Dylan just cannot be talked about enough. But yet, Bowie influenced by Bob Dylan. And then Queen Bitch. Again, Queen Bitch is a really electric kind of track. It's very much what you would put into the Ziggy Stardust album, or what we've even had on The Man Who Sold the World. But in a way, it kind of fits into the Ziggy Stardust album, because Queen Bitch is about Lou Reed. Lou Reed. Now, Lou Reed, the ambiguity about the bisexuality, again, we've got all that. We've got that with the Velvet Underground, but particularly with Lou Reed, who was openly, I think, a bisexual. And there we are. It's all there. And of course, Bowie went to produce a year later, with the success of Ziggy Stardust from Mars, he went in the studio and produced Lou Reed's solo album, Transformer. And then we've got a very interesting track called The Bewley Brothers, which there's so much speculation about what is the Bewley Brothers about. I'm not going to go too much into that, but it is amazing imagery and what is going on in that song. But what a wonderful end. The whole album is shaping up into various directions, but yet it's been called Bowie's album that he becomes Bowie, if you see what I mean by that. He's finding these more identities that he's looking at, and his music is more, I think, defined in what he wants to do. There were 2 singles released on this, which is interesting, because we got Changes was released and didn't really do anything. But of course, Life on Mars was released as a single, but that was after the success of the Ziggy Stardust album with Starman. And Life on Mars was RCA. They got now this on catalogue because they could push it more. I think, in fact, it almost had like a little re-release because of the success. Because that would be when I heard it, and we went and bought it, because we'd bought the Ziggy Stardust album, which was absolutely massive, and you can't help but love that. And then I thought, oh yeah, let's say some more of. And we got this, and this is how it was pushed. And of course, with all this success, they released Life on Mars as a single as well. I think the Life on Mars single may have been released, I said at the Ziggy Town, it could have been into the release round with Gene Genie and Driving Saturday. It could have been more linked with Aladdin Sane, because Aladdin Sane was in the same year anyhow. So I think that could well have been put out, definitely. Um, anyway, that's just a point. So this album is so outstanding. It just has Bowie in his element. He's in his element with his ideas, and it's full of ideas. It's full of themes. You know, he's got his sort of philosophical stuff. He's with like Nietzsche ideas. He's got the occultism of Crowley. Then he's got sort of all sort of vaudeville almost still. It's still in there, that music hall bit that is very much there. But then he's got another sort of look of almost like the folk elements that he's got from Dylan is brought in to his music as well. Because this album is not as electric, it's more poppy. If you notice, some of the songs are more poppy, so he's discovering pop, which will put him into glam rock. It's all here on this album. This why this album is such an outstanding album. And as the years have gone by, people have looked back and thought, wow, what is going on with this album? He's got so much going on, his lyrics and the experimentation, but it's all more focused now. And this is all leading to what he knows that he's going to be doing in the creation of Ziggy Stardust's character in the next album. It's all here. This is why this album is so important. And I get such a lot of delight from it. I still love it now as much as I did when I first heard it all those years ago. What an amazing album it was, just to hear it that first time. In many ways, I like this. Dare I say it? But I will. Even better than Ziggy Stardust. My favourite one still is Aladdin Sane in many ways, but this one I may put as equal. Some days I might think, yeah, actually, this album is the one that stands out. But then I could start thinking, oh, what about the other albums? And this is the beauty of Bowie. Bowie has so many albums that you can truly call classic and iconic. And I just can't help but absolutely adore them. So if you've never heard this album, I highly recommend you do. If you've heard of Bowie, know a bit about Bowie, and perhaps know later Bowie, this fourth studio album is the one that you should really go and investigate, because you can see so much in it and why it is considered one of the great all-time great albums. I think that is a perfectly valid it's perfectly valid to say it is, because it just is. I know not everybody will see it, not everybody will like Bowie, and I can understand that. Everybody's got their own opinions. But if you love Bowie, you can see the context of this album. It's so outstanding, and I can't help but love it. And I never get tired of it. I mean, it was another good excuse, again, when I'm making some notes about this album, just listening to it again, and, you just can't help but love it. No, I shouldn't go on so much. Anyhow, before I do go, I'll show you. This is my CD copy, but these are the ones that they brought out, the remastered ones. But there's no extra tracks on this one. You've got all that on there. But I've got this one, which is it'd be from the early 90s, I think. You'll notice the cover, a much paler cover on there. Maybe it's there. It's got, I don't know how I managed to get all this. I just picked it up somewhere. It says promotional copy. Now, the important thing here on is we have got Bombers on this, which is a track that's mentioned that never made it onto the final cut of Hunky Dory. It's a song that has talked about, but it didn't make it. So there's a copy of that here on this CD. Then we've got the Supermen, which is an alternative version of the song The Superman. That's not on this album either. And then we've got, I think that's the one actually, sorry, it's on the Man Who Sold the World album. Yeah, I'm sure certain of that. And then we've got a demo version of Quicksand, and finally the Bewley Brothers. There's a demo version. Well, it says alternative version of that. So it's not a demo; it's an alternative version. Interesting, very much interesting. And that's that. Then I thought, I don't have many records, as you know. I couldn't keep my record collection, but guess what? I do have a copy of this. Now, this is not obviously an earlier edition. It's one I've managed to pick up later. That's the giveaway because it's not got the RCA thing. Though inside they've reproduced, I think they must have reproduced the label because it's got the orange RCA label on inside. And there we've got the back. Look at this back cover. I always love this, the way they wrote on there. And there's Bowie again with his really long hair image on that one. It's interesting that Bowie came back to that image throughout his career as well. You see pictures of him in later years with his long hair as well. But yeah, that one there, it still stands out because it's from a black and white photograph, and there's certain ambiguity about this, and it's Bowie, the genius of Bowie, who was so good at doing it all through his career. Yeah, the chameleon. So that's it. That's my review of Hunky Dory by David Bowie from 1971. Yes, 1971. Hey, Bayek knows what days want the... Anyhow, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. We'll let you know when I put out these videos. And have a look in playlists. You can see all the sort of music things that I've done. I'm building them up. But I do a lot about films and TV shows now. I'm really into all that, as well as nostalgia. But I say music is becoming more and more important part. Also, if you like this particular video, please give it a like. It gets it out onto YouTube. And hopefully other people might enjoy this video. Hopefully they will. Or perhaps they won't. And Bayek, it all costs notes. So you guys have heard that. And I say, if you've got any comments, please put your comments down. I love to read your comments and what you think about David Bowie and this album. It's such a great album. Yeah, I'm off again. I better stop it. Yes. So I'll always answer you any comments you make. And I've gone on far too long. So all I've got to say is, I'll see thee again.